Okay, everyone, let's talk about non-experimental designs. Uh, sometimes we cannot conduct experiments. Okay, so we need to rely on some non-experimental approach. Now the defining features for non-experimental design will be no random assignments, right? And also no manipulation of, and you should know, right? It's an independent variable. Now, why we need to do non-experimental research? Um, for example, for ethical reason, um, like sorry, and like you want to study if children of alcoholic parent later in their lives they have relationship problem or some other difficulties in their lives, you are not going to do experiments. It's unethical, right? You assign some children to live with a alcoholic parent, right? Some children not. I mean that's not gonna, right? So for ethical reason, so instead of you just follow up some existing families. Um, Also, sometimes you conduct the correlation research because it's impossible to do the experiment. Some effects is long term, like eating red meat, right? Red meat and the chances of cancer. It takes a long time. It cannot be done in an experiment. Or alcoholic parents, the children's marriage success. Well, it's kind of like a tied to this ethical reason as well too. Okay, exploratory research. Sometimes we have no um, previous research to tell us some possible direction, possible result. So it's purely exploratory. Okay. In that case, we just collect data. Usually, we just collect data. Okay. So there are different types of non-experimental research. The first one is a quasi-experiment. It's kind of like a half experiment, but not quite. The main difference between quasi and the true experiment is quasi or quasi, some people say it, is without random assignment. Okay, and in other words, it's pretty much like a field research, field study. You just go, for example, you go to a class, you go to school and you do experiment on two different classes. So it's not random assignment because the classes are already there. But you do conduct some studies on that. Okay. So also there are some you probably know a TV program called What Would You Do? You just Google that. What would you do? It pop out a lot of very interesting social experiments. So they set up in a situation, observe how real people react to that situation. Okay. There are correlational studies now. Research. You do survey. You have a different variables. For people to answer, and then you see if those variables are related. Natural observation. Like anthropologists do this a lot. They just go to the society, just observe without disturbing, without any attempt to influence their behavior. Okay, and in psychology, we probably will code the behaviors of the participant. Well, yeah, not necessarily participant. You just observe those people you want to observe. Case studies. Case studies is a lot of medical, like biopsychology. They rely on case studies. Qualitative. Okay, this is right now quite important branch of psychology. People do qualitative studies. We're going to talk about it later. Okay. Now, sometimes we will combine quantitative, which is what we're doing right now. We gather number, gather data, analyze the data. Those are quantitative. And qualitative, it pretty much is interview. And sometimes in some study, we'll combine these two. And we kind of call it a mixed method. Okay, so now this time I'll talk about case studies a little bit. It's a descriptive record of a single individual's experiences and or behaviors, and why those individuals. Usually it's because they're special. Either, um, you know, for example, special injury, right? Special disease. Uh, so clinical psychology, the mostly they use case studies. Like patient, right? They have some special situation. Hey, we studied this individual. Give us some insights about this, disease or mental illness, whatever. Ah, and good thing is a few restrictions on what data to collect. Okay, as long as that individual agree, answer your questions. I mean, sky's the limit. So there are five purposes for case studies. First, they are the source of hypothesis. Let me show you this, example. So there's a blind boy that sees. Um, it's supposed to be a clip, but I think you can just go ahead and download yourself. Or let me just show you this. Let me show you this. I'm not going to show the whole clip, but I'm going to go to the YouTube and um, uh, take a look at this. When you enter these keywords and you can see the boy who sees without eyes, and it's literally this the boy is he lost his eyes when he was a kid due to illness, but he developed this special ability to see things around him. Not exactly see, it's kind of like a bat, or dolphins use echolocation. Okay. It's a very interesting case, so I'll encourage you to take a look. So that's possible to form some hypothesis. What kind of hypothesis can we get from this blind boy that sees? Maybe a human brain, like dolphin brains, are capable of echolocation. In that we do some right study. Alright, now the second possible purpose, is that they are a source of developing therapy. So for example, Freud treated a lot of female patients, and based on his observation and experience, working with those patients, he developed his theory. His theory is kind of crazy, but I mean, it's still kind of like a source of theories. What I'm saying is always correct, but all right. The third one is that they allow the study of a rare phenomenon. I mean, usually it's case studies because this case is so rare. We cannot get one. Besides this person, there's no way we can get the other participants. So we study this case. So for example, there's a disease or a disorder called prosopagnosia. That means the problem of recognizing faces, including one's own face. Um, this is a rare condition. So again, I'll just show you this YouTube clip, and then you will see, yeah, this exactly this. Just to see this case, this woman, I forgot what's the reason. I guess it's a disease or whatever. After that, she just couldn't recognize anyone. Sometimes when the face is really prominent, some prominent feature like Einstein, the hair, the mustache, maybe she can recognize. But usually she can't, and including herself. Okay, so prosopagnosia. Okay, and what information do we get from this case? Actually, later we find that there are some areas in the brain probably responsible for recognizing patterns or human faces. Uh, Now, four is they provide exceptions or doubt on accepted theory of practice. This is a sad case. Probably some of you heard about it. Dr. Money and the boy. Dr. Money. Um, this is a long story, but let me show you this. All right, yeah, exactly. Is this one? Um, the boy with no penis. This stuff from this mother gave birth to twins, twin boys, and they went through the circumcision, but one of them had an accident and burned off all the penis. And then later, the parents found that Dr. Money suggests, say, oh, according to my research, gender identity is just from nurture. In other words, social, you know, culture and social shape our gender identity. So they look for Dr. Money for help. And Dr. Money say, oh, okay, we can just transfer this boy without penis into a girl, and just strictly follow my, order, my method, and he will grow up, become very feminine, and become a girl. And this is a sad case because it's not a case. Dr. Money later interviewed the boys and followed up for a while, and then claimed in his published paper say it's a success. Actually, this boy suffered, and when he was about 12 or 13, the parents see, I mean, he suffered so much, so they told him the truth, and he changed back to his own gender. But then, you know, it ended out, as a tragedy. So you look at this. I'm not going to reveal it too much. All right. So this, I mean, at the time of Dr. Money, people think gender identity is, nurture. In other words, parents teach you how to be a boy or girl. But after this and some other evidence, right now we tend to agree it's actually nature. It's in your gene. When you were born, you pretty much born with that gender identity, your gender identity already. Okay. So finally, they have a persuasive and motivational value, like very inspiring story. Some of you probably know if you are, as like a basketball as me. I follow NCAA or NBA, and this the insanity is this Asian player Jeremy Lin. Um, uh, he was about to be kicked out of NBA, but in this Cinderella story, I mean and not one night he was just uh, been assigned to be a player, and he got this chance to shine and suddenly become world known celebrity. Right. You just check. You know what? The insanity. You know. Anyway, this is the night of insanity was born, and yeah, it's Jeremy Lin. He became a really famous basketball player. Okay, this one's really cool. Anyway, so those are the case studies of purposes, or the functions. But however, case studies, as some other research methods, have some limitations. So, what are some problems? First, this is no brainer. It's not representative. Case studies are case studies because those people are special. But if they are special, you have a hard time to generalize the result to the general population. Also, how do you know this case study is fair? How do you know this is some, um, like real. What I probably shouldn't say. What I should say is when we observe a case studies, we all usually we have our own conclusions. Say, oh, I think it's because this causes this behavior, or this is a phenomenon. But how can you know? Because we cannot follow that person 24/7, right? So if not, we probably are not aware of all the relative aspects of that person's life, and therefore cannot draw the conclusion, decisive conclusion. We can speculate, but probably not decisive conclusion. Important data might be missing. So, for example, when you do case study, usually you observe or you interview, right? But when you ask the people questions, maybe the person thing is not important or relevant. It turns out to be the most important reason, right? Or maybe they are too embarrassed to mention it. They lie. People can lie, and especially when you focus all your attention on one case. Sometimes they don't want to mention something embarrassing. Retrospective data is not reliable. So again, when you interview, usually it's years after the things happen. Maybe the person forgets, or person biased, kind of like tied to number three. Or mood can influence what we recall. So, for example, if I'm happy, I tend to recall some happy experience and say, yeah, I think it's because of those happy experiences help me to become like this. And if I'm sad, I tend to see everything suck, right? So, number five, we cannot make a cause and effect conclusion. This is kind of like a correlation. And finally, when we report case studies, usually it's from one person's perspective, and that person can be biased too. All right. Okay, so this is about case studies.